Everyone. If you are joining this live stream by YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, we're streaming on all those platforms. So welcome. Today is Career Happy Hour. It's Friday, 3 o'clock Pacific time. Today is May 6th, 2022, the Friday before Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all those who are celebrating, for sure. Today's session is how to activate your spidey sense and really rely on it, especially when it's time to go, and to know when it's time to go. And this is something that came to me this week, and I'll share with you the context of that here in just a moment. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrew Beach. I'm an executive coach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals like you communicate value with confidence so that you can find great opportunities faster, whether you're working or not. That's through a pragmatic process of branding, planning, and effective networking to help you find your ideal, your utopian professional opportunity. If that's you, there's certainly in the description of this video a link to an application to see if coaching with me is right for you. I highly recommend you take advantage of that opportunity so that we can see how we can get you where it is you really want to be. So today's session or today's live stream really is the nexus of a conversation I had with a coaching client. Of course, all coaching client interactions are confidential, 100%. So I'll only be speaking in generalities. But if you have any questions at all about anything related to your career or leadership or anything really, this is an open forum for our community to connect and have conversation. So if that's you, then we are here to support your success in every way humanly possible. So please put your questions in the comments, in the chat, whatever that looks like. Even after the stream is over and you're watching the replay, I do monitor these things. And if you have a question, then certainly send me a direct message or leave a comment. Either way, just fine by me. One way we can expand this community is to share out this stream. So if you're on any of these channels, just share it out to your friends or family on a private message, an email, or publicly post it on social, whatever works for you. But getting more people involved allows us to have more interactions, to meet more people, to have more interactions, and really to get better at communicating and building relationship. It's hard enough, I think, today to build meaningful relationships with other professionals because there's so many things that stand in the way. And this group, this community called Career Happy Hour is designed so that if you put your, let's say, LinkedIn profile in the comments section, which I advocate, you put your profile in there, then what you're saying to other people is that, yes, you can reach out to me. Yes, I will say yes if you want to have an offline conversation for 15 or 20 minutes. Happy to do that. And same goes for me. You know, the funny thing is very few people ever reach out to me and ask for 15 minutes with the compelling ask. Now, what I mean by that is something that isn't self-interested. I recognize that it's a give and take in a networking situation, but often people reach out to me with self-interest, wanting me to solve their problems rather than seeing how they can reciprocate first, contribute first, invest first before asking for reciprocation, which often works better. And you control that part 100%. So that's it really. So if you want to find me or connect with me, I am on LinkedIn at Branding Dynamo. That's my handle. It's something that I've had, and professional branding is something that is in my wheelhouse really. So Branding Dynamo on most every social channel you have, you will be able to find me. So let's walk through a scenario. Of course, put your questions in the chat as we go along, your comments, your observations, if you've experienced something similar. By the way, there's also an opportunity for you to get live coaching. I don't know anybody else who's offering this that comes on any of these channels, LinkedIn or otherwise, and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you free coaching if you want it. You can come on live right now and get your questions answered. So every one of the platforms I'm on has a capability to do that. Just look in the description and it says, hey, if you want to come on and do some live coaching, click this link. If you have a question that you want answered in the stream, but you don't want everybody to know you're asking it and don't feel comfortable putting it in the chat, then great. Come into this green room on the back end of my streaming service, and you can put a private chat in there with your name as anonymous. You don't have to put your name in there. Just put anonymous viewer and put your question in there. And then once I see the question, I'll be able to answer it and nobody will be the wiser. So that's the other side. Okay. So back to the scenario. So here's the scenario. This person had been working hard in a role for about a year and a half, ended up getting a new leader really early on into their tenure in this role. That new leader had never led people before. And after a year and a half, it became very clear to this person that the organization or this leader was attempting to manage her out of the organization. And I don't know if any of you have been in that situation before in a corporate environment where someone just had it in for you, didn't make it easy on you, but also wasn't hard on you to the point where it was obvious that they were keeping track of ways to get you to exit the organization. But that stuff happens more frequently than you would imagine. And whether you leave voluntarily, which is certainly what they would prefer, that you leave voluntarily, or for cause, right? For some sort of termination for cause, or perhaps a layoff, right? Many organizations and states, they're really quick to say, oh, at will employment. Well, that, you know what? That goes both ways. And I think there's been a rude awakening on a certain side of that equation during this pandemic time and the great reallocation or the finding of your passion, the great resignation, whatever you want to call it. And so a lot of organizations now are reaping what they sow. And as soon as these people leave for another opportunity, whether their choice or not, they now are out an asset and they have to rehire in probably one of the more competitive marketplaces I've ever seen. And what that means is, first of all, it won't stay that way. I know that's a fact. I've seen both sides of it. I've been around long enough to know it's not going to stay this way. But I also know that they're not doing any service to their brand by making it difficult on people and instead trying to improve themselves as leaders. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm really looking to talk about today is sometimes this I put Spider-Man in the thumbnail for a reason. And that's because sometimes there's this spidey sense. Have you ever had that happen where you had this intuition, something just wasn't right? And so you had a couple ways to respond to that. You either put your head down and kept working, or thought, hey, oh, this will pass. Or you're like, I need to listen to this spidey sense and do something. That's what I'm talking about today. How do you know when, and what do you do about it? What do you do about it? So let's walk through some teaching today. If you have any questions along the way, certainly put it in the chat. Happy to answer. And then when you have a chance, put something in here. If you've had a situation like that or some variation of what I'm talking about, then certainly by all means, we can talk through that. So this idea, when it's time to go, the first thing really to consider is your awareness, your level of awareness of consideration. It doesn't mean you will leave. Let's be clear on that. When it's time to go doesn't mean you will leave. It means that you can leave if presented that opportunity. And so the idea here is we're always heightened awareness and we recognize the signs. Okay. Heightened awareness, recognize the signs, recognize what is going on. How is this impacting me? What does this mean? And we'll go over some ideas on each of these topics in just a second. So pay attention to the signs. The second thing is, what do I do about these signs once I see that they're happening? Because it's not always a negative thing. You might have a spidey sense, and at first, because it's change, you might think it's negative, but it might not be. It might actually be positive. Some of the people you were hoping would leave the organization actually got fired or laid off or whatever. And all of a sudden it's a better environment for you. So what to do about that is another topic we'll cover today. And then getting help. It's okay to admit you need help. It's one of the hardest things that many of us need to admit, that I need help. Maybe it's the word help. We talk about this, the nuance of that word called help. And maybe you put a different word in there, but getting help, I think, is normal. It's natural. It's vulnerable to say, I need help. And that's when what to do when things kind of go awry and you can't separate fact from fiction, or you don't really know how to respond to certain things. That's what we're talking about here. So let's go through each of these 3 items, just a really quick hit by hit, blow by blow. And let's see how we can address some of these things. That if you get in a situation where you feel like things are just not going the way that you want them to, and what do you really do about that? Okay, so let's talk first about the signs. What are the signs that things aren't going as well as they used to? And I've been in career transition now since 2005, so about 17 years. And I've seen it on regular. I could set my watch to it. Okay. There's always something that happens around quarterly earnings. And whether you're public or private, I guess it doesn't really matter, but there is a monthly, a quarterly cycle that many organizations go through, and they make decisions on what to do about those earnings. Now, those could be positive results, in which case they might acquire a company or add leadership or start a new product offering. There's a lot of positives that come out of that, but there's also a lot of negatives. So this is an opportunity barometer. We're looking for opportunity, always eyes and ears open, and we're looking for opportunity. And the quarterly earnings cadence, you could set your watch to it. So just be clear, pay attention to what's happening, especially if you're in a publicly traded organization. What are they saying? What are the earnings doing? What is the the analyst community saying about that? How is the board responding? What adjustments are being made? And what does that mean in terms of downstream impact to you in your little corner of the organization? Pay attention. Okay, that's all I can say. Pay attention to the signs. The other thing that happens, and I see this a lot, is that, and I've seen this when people get hired, right? They work hard, they interview, they get hired at what they feel is their perfect company. And all of a sudden, 2 months later, their leader leaves, or someone else gets funneled in there, or they get promoted. I mean, these things happen. It's a course of business, right? I get it. But what that means is a new leader is going to come in. And what you thought was true may not be true anymore. And that could be positive or negative. But when new leadership comes in, change requires change. I've never seen things not change that came out positive. Let's just say that. So whenever there's a new leader, there's a new direction, a new focus, a new philosophy, a new approach. There's change. And our job is to pay attention and know when new leadership comes in that it's not likely to stay status quo. And that can mean a couple of things, but pay attention, look at the signs, and then decide how to respond. We'll talk about response here in just a second. Reorganization. Do companies reorganize? Yes, there's one company here in Beaverton, Oregon, fairly large company that many of you are likely aware of, that reorganizes, it seems like, every 16 months, couple times every 3, 4, 5 years. People end up with new leaders, 4 leaders in 2 years or something like that. It's a constant thing. So these reorganizations and shuffling assets and people to new areas of the organization and new teams and norms are disrupted all the time. So that reorganization causes disruption. And so pay attention. How are things going to shake out? What does the new leadership look like? What openings are available? Does this create duplication of my job? Is what I was known for in the area of expertise I had still necessary? Do I need to retool and reapproach how I'm viewed in the organization? Who do I need to? I mean, there's a lot of questions that come up. There's no doubt. And questions often are the the key to this process. So ask questions of everybody just to gather information. And we'll talk about that and how to respond. But then there's mergers and acquisitions. So this is kind of like reorganization, but it also could be, I mean, some of these could be coupled, right? You could have a merger, acquisition, or reduction in force and new leadership all at once. And that could create a lot of disruption and a lot of anxiety, and knowing how to process that information is sometimes challenging, no doubt. But a merger and acquisition might be different because there may be a feud involved. Okay. But there are duplication of efforts. And so as a merger and acquisition comes in, it creates new opportunity, but it also creates duplication that might need to be eliminated. And if we're talking feudal wars, sometimes it's the person with the most, or the team or the leader with the most influence that ends up winning, or the one that has the best relationship with the executive leadership team or the board that ends up winning. And that's just truth of the matter. I watched a documentary. I think it was on Netflix or Amazon about Boeing, and I'd never heard the history of Boeing before, and it was really fascinating to me to see what their trajectory was and what happened after they merged or acquired another company, and what did that mean for the leadership, and how did that change the trajectory of their product offerings and production and manufacturing, and what happened to the quality. It was just really fascinating. But merger and acquisition, and I've been through some of those in my career as well. When a merger and acquisition comes on, that means there's likely somewhere a duplication of effort. And if that's the case, then certainly we have a need. We have a need to be aware and connected, plugged in, if you will, to what's happening. So keep that kind of in your, the duplication of efforts and functions. You may have to reestablish your credibility with a new set of people that don't really know you. And being prepared to do that proactively is a key skill. And then a lot of what I have done in the past and what I interact with is reduction in force. People get laid off for whatever reason, but layoffs indicate really a new focus. And sometimes, yes, that is a cost reduction initiative, but more often than not, it could be something totally different than that. But as you see people around you getting laid off, that doesn't mean you're insulated. It means you might be next. And so these are the signs. And I'm sure there's multitudes of others, but these are the common ones that I see. And the idea here is maintain awareness, pay attention to the signs, and kind of document what's happening so that you can respond to it objectively and proactively. So let's talk about what do we do? What do we do once we see the signs and we make a decision on what we're going to do about it? What will we do about it? Well, I think part of this discussion that we've just had is based on being prepared. Be prepared for what's next. Whatever that is, doesn't matter. It could be any one of those 6 things I just talked about, or something else totally different. Could be a personal thing, or a health emergency, or whatever. Could be relocating to be closer to family. Whatever decision you're deciding to make, the idea is be prepared, and that's where having some sort of plan or ideal. I think we talked about that maybe a few weeks ago. We had a session where it's like, hey, how do I describe my ideal? So go back and look at some of the other streams that I've had. I've talked about this many times before, is having some kind of plan, so that if you say, I got something good right now, but if I'm not asking myself a question, what could be better than this? What could be better than what I have right now? If I'm not asking myself that question, then I'm at a disadvantage. And if I'm not answering that question in some capacity on paper and then doing something about it, then I am not prepared. This isn't a zero-sum game, and I'm not suggesting that nobody does this, but very few people do this proactively and consistently. And that's why many of the people that I coach, they seek guidance. They seek guidance from a coach like me because they want to be more prepared, but they don't want to do it alone, or in some ways have a situation where things aren't going their way and they're forced into it. So they're proactive that way and they're willing to invest, and it works out for them for the better. So be prepared for whatever's next. Document that on paper if at all possible. And don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. This is a natural course of business. And in this natural course of business, I think what you'll realize is that change is an everyday occurrence. Change happens every day. Whether you're participating or not is the bigger question. We know it's coming, so we know there's change, but don't be surprised when change comes. And we mentioned a moment ago, seek guidance. You have peers, you have mentors, you have leaders. You could have a coach like me. Seek guidance. There is safety in an abundance of counselors. Safety in an abundance of counselors. So seek guidance. Get other people's perspectives. See what's going on in different parts of the organization. See what's happening in other organizations that you may be interested in. See how that lines up with your values. But seek guidance. Sometimes it's just the art of being curious. Have you ever been curious about something? I know I have. And as you leverage your curiosity, what you'll find is a new possibility. So lean into your curiosity, find new possibility, and never stop looking. Never stop looking for what's better than your current role, and be prepared to do something about it. Be prepared to do something about it when it comes, because it may come at your own choosing, or it may come not at your own choosing, where you're forced into it. And I'd rather have it come at my own choosing. And other than being proactive about it, I suppose what you could do is save a larger portion of your income, so you have financial runway to get to the next thing, so that you're not sacrificing your values to find a paycheck. So there's things you can do now. Part of that is being prepared and planning and having that ideal. I get it. And the other part is being financially prudent with your money, so that you have a reserve fund in the event that you need to find something else. So never stop looking. Not that you're leaving. See, those are, the funny thing is, those are two separate things. Looking for something better doesn't say I'm leaving. It says it's presuming there's something better. And if there is, you'll consider it. But that decision to leave is a multifaceted decision. It's not something that just happens, and then feed your network. This is one that I think many people miss for whatever reason. They feel like they should only leverage their network when they need something. And au contraire, one of the things that many of the people I've coached have said, especially those coming maybe from a reduction in force where that wasn't forced on them, and maybe they had a long tenure at one company, is they ignored their network. They did not feed their network. They did not have anything active. Their relationships were cold and somewhat stale, and they had to rebuild that. And the promise they made to themselves is they weren't going to make that mistake twice. And they decided to be available when people asked, and they decided to feed their network and stay in contact with people on a regular cadence that they thought were, instrumental in their success, or might have some insights that they could leverage at a future date. But the idea is pouring into somebody or into another person means that you can activate the law of reciprocity at some point, and it doesn't feel weird. Believe me, it's the same reason you feel obligated to buy somebody a gift when they have bought you one. You ever been there where someone unexpectedly gave you a gift and you're like, oh man, I didn't get you anything? Don't you feel bad? But they did that out of the kindness of their heart to give you something. And that's what we're talking about here. Do it out of the kindness of your heart to give something, to feed that network. When you have an opportunity to ask for the favor in return, then you have access to that for sure. Okay. So that's really, honestly, that's really all the teaching I have for today. But, there is some honorable mention here in terms of getting help. Because in some of the situations I've seen that I just described, where it felt like somebody was being managed out of the organization, it wasn't uncommon that I encouraged them to seek legal counsel. because there was something there that said, hey, that was ageism or discrimination, or that's not legal. And I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on YouTube or LinkedIn. So seek legal counsel. It's not uncommon that some of these things are borderline gray area, but at least you'll establish a baseline and feel comfortable you have protection in the event that you need it. So not uncommon that you might seek an employment attorney to help you with your situation. And then a coach. Seek out someone like me. Again, there's safety in an abundance of counselors, and I'm happy to see if you are a fit for the coaching that I provide. You can use the link down below to complete an application, and I'm happy to have an initial conversation with you to see if that's if it makes sense. Also, if you're in a large organization, sometimes there's internal teams you can leverage. People like human resources or employee relations are there and for a purpose to serve the employees and to mitigate risk. So if there's a situation where serving you mitigates their risk, they're all in. But if serving you increases their risk, they may not be interested. So just be clear on that. Not every HR team is like that. Not every ER team, employee relations team, is like that. But that's just been my experience, that generally speaking, the organization is there to protect itself. And that's what human resources is to do, is to protect the organization from breaches in compliance, whether that be through fines from government agencies or lawsuits from employees. Both have happened. And that's why HR and legal teams exist in the first place inside many corporations. On top of that, I can't end a conversation like this without suggesting you seek therapy, because there is certainly an opportunity for you to have a mental or an emotional crisis during some of these situations where there's so much change, that seeking counsel that way, seeking emotional support or mental care therapy or counseling, is totally in bounds. You should be addressing some of these feelings you're having in a safe, confidential environment. And that's what therapy will do for you. It'll give you a safe, confidential environment in which to express some of your feelings and kind of process when processing in front of your peers or your leadership on the job. It just isn't appropriate. And so many organizations will have an EAP program or employee assistance program as part of their, I think, health insurance benefits. But you can get free mental and emotional support through your EAP. So if there's any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer. Just go ahead and put those in the comments or in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that come across. Otherwise, I will bid you farewell, and we will say have a great weekend, and we'll go forth and prosper from there. But it is the Friday before Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. Or if you're going to see your mother, make sure you take care of her and that she has a wonderful day celebrating mom. Not that we shouldn't celebrate moms every day. We should. That's for sure. All right, folks. Well, thanks for coming for this week's episode of Career Happy Hour. We're here every Friday, 3 o'clock Pacific time, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and also Instagram on my mobile phone. So, all right, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye now.